Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Sotah. We are up to Perek Aleph Mishnah Daled. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilun Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Ranbai, Eliyahu ben Burcha, Israelov, Chana bad Miriam, Sason ben Raya, and Yoshua ben Shifra, Menuchatam began Eden, Amen. And Lavdi ben Chaim Lechaim, for the Refuah Shelemav, Daniel Shalom ben Rosa, Betoch Shachole Israel. The Mishnah continues describing the Sotah's procedure. Hayu malin otah lebedin hagadol shebYerushalayim. They would bring her up to the great court in Yerushalayim. The Torah teaches that a Sotah may be tried only by the great Sanhedrin of 71 judges, which meets in the Lishkat HaGazit in the temple. Ume'amin aleh kedech sheme'amin al edeh nefashot, and the judges frighten her so that if she is guilty, she will tell the truth and admit her guilt. They tell her that if she is guilty, she will die from drinking the bitter water, and to avoid that fate, she should confess, just as they frighten witnesses in cases of capital punishment, so that they will tell the truth. The judges warn witnesses in capital cases that if they give false testimony, they will cause the defendant to be executed for no reason. And similarly, a Sotah is told that if she is guilty, she should confess, rather than make herself liable to execution by choosing to drink bitter water. If frightening her does not make her confess, the judges try to persuade her in other ways. V'omrim lah, and they say to her, Biti, my daughter, harbe yain oseh, harbe schok oseh, harbe yaldut oseh, harbe shchenim haraim osim. Wine causes much indecency, playfulness causes much indecency, childishness causes much indecency, and bad neighbors cause much indecency. They provide possible excuses for her behavior so she will not be ashamed to confess. And they say to her, act, meaning admit your guilt for the sake of his great name, which is written in holiness, so that it will not be erased over the water. The biblical verses that relate to Sotah's oath and curse are written on a piece of parchment, and then the writing, which includes God's name, is erased in the water that the Sotah will drink. Normally, it is a biblical transgression to erase the name of God. The Torah, however, makes a special exception for a Sotah, so that an innocent woman can drink the water and then be allowed to return to her husband. The judges tell her that if she is guilty, she should confess, so it will not be necessary to erase God's name. ואומרים לפניה דברים שאינה כדאי לשומען היא וכל משפחת בית אביה. And they tell her things that neither she nor any member of her father's family deserve to hear, meaning they tell her that great people were not ashamed to confess their wrongdoing. For example, Yehuda confesses involvement with Tamar, and Reuven confesses sins involving his father's bed. Although it is not stated in the Torah, the sages knew through an oral tradition that Reuven admitted his guilt, as the Tosfot Yom Tov brings down in the name of Rashi on page 7b in Masechet Sotah. Since she might be guilty and the members of her family might be no better than she is, members of her family will certainly be present and hear what is being said. They do not deserve to hear these stories about people who were truly righteous. And that is the Nabotai of Mishnah Daled. Mishnah begins, Im amrat me'ani, if she says, I am defiled, meaning she confesses that she committed adultery. Shoveret ktubata, she writes her husband a receipt stating that she has lost her rights to her ktubah. The ktubah is the amount a husband or his estate must pay his wife if their marriage ends in divorce or his death. If she commits adultery, the sages release him from having to pay the ktubah so that he will not be deterred from divorcing her, as the Gemara says in Yevamot, page 89a. However, she must write a receipt, a note stating that she has no right to collect her ktubah and give it to her husband. This prevents her from claiming payment later, because by showing this receipt, the husband proves that he is not obligated to her. Now, normally, a husband writes a ktubah document for his wife in which he records his monetary obligations towards her. When she comes to collect her ktubah, she must show a ktubah document to prove that the money is owed to her. Therefore, if a Sotah has a ktubah document, there is no need for her to write a receipt, because the court can prevent her from collecting the money merely by tearing up the ktubah document. Our Mishnah, though, requires her to write a receipt because it refers to a place where it was not the custom to write a ktubah document. In such places, a wife can collect her payment merely by proving that she was divorced, that her husband died. It is therefore necessary for a Sotah to write a receipt so that she will not be able to collect in that way. V'yotzet, and she leaves him. Since she certainly committed adultery, she is prohibited to her husband forever. The sages therefore obligate him to divorce her so that he will not cohabit with her, as the Rambam discusses in Hilchot Ishut, chapter 24, Halacha 18. Although adultery carries a death penalty, the court does not put her to death. This is because a person is not executed by the court unless two men warned him or her before the crime that the act is forbidden and which punishment it carries and witnessed the act. But if she says, I am pure, and she is prepared to drink the bitter water at this point before the name of God has been erased, Even if she still claims that she is innocent, she can refuse to drink the bitter water, so she is exempted from having to drink the water, but she must leave her husband and she loses her ketubah. But if she says, I am pure, and she is prepared to drink the bitter water, they take her up to the place where she is to drink the water by first taking her all the way down to the eastern gate, which was opposite the Nikanor gate, and from there to the Nikanor gate, instead of taking her directly from the Lishkat Gazit, where the court sits, to the Nikanor gate, they take her on a longer roundabout route. This is done in order to tire her out and increase her discomfort, and the hope that it will make her confess. Shesham mashkinat sotot, because it is in the Nikanor gate that the sotas are given the water to drink. The Torah requires a sotah to stand before Hashem. She therefore stands in the Nikanor gate, which is directly east of the most sacred part of the temple, the Holy of Holies, as the Rambam writes in the Sotah, chapter 3, Halakha 3. Umtarinat yoldot, and women who gave birth are purified. Women who have become tameh through giving birth stand at the Nikanor gate to oversee the offerings that they must bring in order to become tahor. A woman who gave birth is tameh for 7 days in the case of a son and 14 days in the case of a daughter. On the last day of this period, she immerses in a mikvah. Then on the 41st day after the birth of a son and the 81st day after the birth of a daughter, she brings certain offerings. Like anyone who brings an offering, she must attend their sacrificial service. So for this purpose, she stands at the Nikanor gate, which opens into the courtyard where the sacrificial service takes place. Umtarinat mitzoraim, and mitzorat are purified. The purification process of a mitzorah takes place at the Nikanor gate. A mitzorah is a person who has sarat, a certain type of skin disease that is described in Sefer Vayikra chapter 13. A mitzorah is tameh. Once a Kohen declares that the mitzorah sarat is healed, he must go through a process of purification the last 8 days. On the 8th day, he brings certain offerings, and he stands at the Nikanor gate. The Mishnah describes what happens to the Sotah once she reaches the Nikanor gate. The Kohen oches begadea. A Kohen grabs hold of her clothes by the neckline and pulls at them. Im nikru nikru, im nifremu nifremu. If they are torn a little, they are torn a little, and if they are torn a lot, they are torn a lot. Ad shu megalet libah, until he uncovers her chest. Meaning, when the Kohen pulls at her clothes to bare her chest, he does not need to be concerned whether he makes many tears or only a few. V'soteret sa'ara. He also uncovers her hair and unties the braids of her hair to make her look unkempt. The Kohen degrades the Sotah publicly, so that if she is guilty, she will confess. Even though she might not have committed adultery, it is not inappropriate to disgrace her in this way, because she committed an immoral act by spending time alone with the man after her husband warned her not to, as Rashi explains in Masechet Sanhedrin, page 45b. Now, a Tana holds that these steps were not always taken. Rabbi Yehuda says, if her chest is attractive, he does not uncover it. And if her hair is attractive, he does not untie it. Rabbi Yehuda is concerned that if the Sotah survives the test of drinking the water, young Kohanim who saw the ritual might desire her. To prevent this, if her chest is attractive, it remains covered, and if her hair is attractive, it remains tied up. And the Rav does tell us, Rabbi Yehuda, that Echad does not follow the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. And that is on about today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.